When big clubs are hiring football managers, what are the key criteria that they look at to estimate and to assess which manager will fare better than the other? One of the most recent examples of this exercise was Manchester United when they had to pick between Erik ten Hag and Mauricio Pochettino. So in this video, we're going to look at what are the key criteria that big clubs look at when they're hiring such high caliber managers. So the criteria that we're going to look at is of an advanced nature. We're going to assume that clubs already understand what they want in their coaches in terms of basic qualities like man management or simple tactics. We're going to assume that all of that's out of the way and then look at specific advanced criteria that big clubs use to match up managers against each other. So we're going to look at specifically 5 key categories that Manchester United looked at when they were assessing Erik ten Hag and Mauricio Pochettino at an advanced level, and how these two compare against each other on a scale. So the first criteria at number 5 is the playing systems and tactics versus the players themselves. Pochettino and ten Hag have fared really well in this category. Pochettino at Tottenham and at PSG, he relies specifically on a system and then finds the right players to play in that system, and he plays players to their strengths all the time. And this has been very notable in his Tottenham time when he actually formed a system and then got rid of players that were either duplicative in nature or did not fit in that system, and promoted some of the young talent through the ranks like Harry Winks, who actually took on that central midfield role for Pochettino. Erik ten Hag has a very similar philosophy. He really finds good formation, good tactics, and then finds the right players to fit in that. It's not vice versa. It's not Erik ten Hag takes good players and then finds what formation suits those players. So this is a big red flag in the form of Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, where Erik ten Hag is going to find a system to play at Manchester United and then decide if Ronaldo really fits into that system or not. Other players that may be at risk here could be Marcus Rashford, who Erik ten Hag may prefer playing as an out-and-out number 9. And most recently, Rashford has played along the wings as a number 11. So these are some of the key criteria that Manchester United definitely looked at, and they wanted a manager definitely that is going to build a winning system, a winning formation, and the tactics and strategy will follow based on that, and then find the right players to follow. At number 4 is the transfer policy, and this is something that has been a big problem at a lot of big clubs in the last 5 to 10 years. A lot of the times the managers identify which players they want to bring in, and then it's up to the director of football or the chief executive to actually sign off on those players. In this case, it was very debatable how much say the actual manager would end up having in the future Manchester United recruitment policy. This is where I think Erik ten Hag had a very favorable outcome. I think Mauricio Pochettino went with the flow and did not challenge the status quo at Manchester United, and he was okay with whatever the hierarchy decided. From what we hear in reports, Erik ten Hag actually challenged the way Manchester United approach recruitment today, and then thought of new ways and new ideas where he would want to be more involved in that recruitment process, and this was a deal breaker for him. If Manchester United would not have agreed to change their ways slightly, I don't think Erik ten Hag would have accepted the job. I think he would have actually walked away from it because that's a very important factor for him at Ajax as well. When he's actually recruiting players, he's very involved in the process from the start to the finish, and he has an equal say on recruitment matters, right? So I think this was a big plus for Erik ten Hag, that he actually challenged the way Manchester United have approached recruitment in the last 5 to 7 years after Alex Ferguson left. They haven't really been very successful, right? And an excellent example of this is Manchester United's pursuit of Fabregas when David Moyes joined in, and they spectacularly failed at in that pursuit, and David Moyes didn't really have much of a say, and ended up getting Marwan Fellaini instead, who was probably number 3 in that list of players that he wanted, right? And it ended up in a few years of misfortune for the club, because that central midfield position, I would say, weakened quite a bit. At number 3, we have the youth academy policy. And I think this is where Pochettino and Ten Hag fare very, very well. And they're a class above the rest in comparison with other managers across Europe. Both these managers believe very heavily in the youth system. And I think Pochettino's record at Tottenham and Ten Hag's record at Ajax absolutely prove this. They've brought in so many players from the ranks of the academy to actually fill the first team places, instead of going and dipping into the transfer market. And that speaks volumes. Clubs like Manchester United need to really, really focus on the academy at all times. And they have to put a heavy emphasis on youth players being consistently developed so that they can take first team spots. This is a policy that Alex Ferguson was a big proponent of, and it's also a policy that Ralph Rangnick has always endorsed. And Rangnick has looked at the academy and always tried to bring up a few players to the first team, and they've done well. There have been a lot of names on the first team sheet that have been from the academy. A few players even got first team spots. So from a Manchester United perspective, this was a very big criteria, and both Pochettino and Ten Hag really fit the bill in this case. At number 2 is the overall football philosophy, and in this case as well, Pochettino and Ten Hag are some of the best, right? In terms of philosophy, when we say philosophy, we mean the playing style, the way you approach the game, the way you approach the players playing the game. And you need to really be a people person if you're managing Manchester United. You can't be a very results-oriented person only and not care about the actual players. Some of the best examples in the sport today, I think, are Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, where there's so much emphasis on the way they think about the game and the way they approach players when they're playing the game, that the football that ends up as a product of all of this is never boring, right? It's never boring to see Liverpool or Manchester City play these days. And that's the kind of philosophy that Manchester United need going forward if they are to build the team that they want to build. And I think this philosophy comes across very, very well from Pochettino and from Ten Hag. So both managers there, I think, were well placed. And this is a big criteria when it comes to choosing a manager, is how that manager approaches their playing philosophy and wants to coach the players and create this legacy around the club around that philosophy. And the number 1 criteria, and this is something that's very, very objective and very, very metricized, if you want to call it that, is the number of trophies that you won. This is where Pochettino really fell short, right? Pochettino really had all of the other boxes ticked, but he's never won a trophy with Tottenham. He got them all the way to the Champions League final, but they lost the final in the end. So in this specific case, Ten Hag had a leg up versus Pochettino, and Ten Hag has experienced success. He has taken the team all the way to the championship, all the way to the Dutch Premiership as well. So I think they've done so well in the league and in Europe as well, that this created a very unique skill set for Ten Hag. When you taste success and when you understand what it takes to win trophies, you start to separate yourself away from other managers, right? And that's something that Manchester United really need. They need a manager that has won trophies. They sort of got this in Jose Mourinho, but then they didn't get it in Solskjaer, for example, right? They didn't have it with David Moyes, but they had it with Van Gaal. So there's been a mix of this over the past few years at Manchester United. But I think in the next manager, they absolutely had to get someone that has all of these criteria perfectly mapped out, and all of these criteria had to be very favorable for Manchester United. So I think when they went out and searched for that manager, apart from all the basic attributes that they look for in a manager, these five things were the key areas where Ten Hag really came out on top, and he ticks the box in all of these five categories. And I think that's the reason there's so much confidence and buzz around why everybody thinks he's going to do so well for Manchester United. But again, time will tell what actually happens. But from a criteria perspective, you can't blame Manchester United for choosing Ten Hag over Pochettino because of these five categories that I specifically mentioned. So let me know if you agree with these five categories. I'll be interested to see what other attributes are there that managers should be assessed upon by big clubs.